Hi, Khalid. Sorry, I was in the middle of something else. That's why I
That's all
said
right. It happens. It happens.
just to, since
Cool.
we thought
It's all
we
right.
thought
Should we
get
jump
on.
straight into it? Because
Yeah,
somebody's going to pick me up in less than an hour. I mean, ending at 12:30 sort of thing. So
cool. Yes. So, I was sort of telling a few people about
oh, go on.
the system of democracy that is letting them down. Um, but obviously, it's a sacred cow for a lot of people, and they're very unwilling to give it up. And so that,
Do you think we
that's
should
what
have
I've been doing.
democracy or not? I'm just wondering what your
No,
perspective is.
well, okay. I believe in a one-party state. Just because people don't know what they want, they don't understand their own history, they don't care
Yeah.
about foreign policy, they don't care who their government maims or murders in their name. That's why they don't care about Gaza. They just know they hate Jews and they don't much like Muslims, and they wish
I think a lot
their
of people
government
care about
would keep
Gaza.
supporting Israel.
I think a lot of people don't they care about Gaza, but they're not good enough good enough at organizing themselves to elect a good politician or good political leaders.
Well, I think that they're too afraid even to say that the system is not working as it should, because it's a
Yeah,
kind
a
of
lot of people
heresy.
hate them. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Because the moment you say that, they're going to call you names, right? They're going to call you fascist, commie, Nazi, the whole thing. But I'm saying to them, don't worry about that, because actually George Washington warned Americans all those years ago that political parties would be the end of them. So it's actually a Washingtonian idea.
Okay, so
But
what's
but
his
anyway,
idea?
it's taking a while to sink in.
Maybe yes, educate me. Like, what's his idea? Is he against democracy? Um, and what's his alternative? So we don't have a dictatorship, a brutal dictatorship.
Well, I suppose the thing is, dictatorship, is that really such a bad thing when we think of caliphs? Weren't caliphs constitutional dictators?
Okay, so really, I think maybe there's a misunderstanding. A caliph, or for people who don't know much about Islam, is actually a spiritual leader, and in spiritual things, there's no compulsion in matters of religion. But in the early the caliphs immediately after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon it happened to be political, but they weren't dictators really, because they were like really poor, like, even though, like, for example, was it Umar, the second Khalifa, was in charge of like huge amounts of land and stuff. He slept on the floor. He was always concerned about serving people, so it wasn't a dictatorship in any normal sense that we
But there
understand.
were only four rightly guided caliphs, and they were
Yes.
constitutional leaders. But after that, they were all absolute monarchs, were they not? With many, many
Well, I
wives,
mean,
many more than four.
yeah, but their example was that they were literally, well, there's one, I just give you like the first Khalifa. He was known to secretly go to help a person, and he would chew that person's food for them because they didn't have teeth, they were blind, and they didn't have teeth. Like ridiculous amounts of serving. They were essentially servants. So to call somebody an absolute monarch gives a sense that they were there to boss people around. They was everybody's servants, and that was the example of
Well,
Prophet
no,
Muhammad. Like, yeah.
yeah, but I'm trying to say that the four rightly guided caliphs were not monarchs because they did not inherit from each other from father to son, and they were not
Yeah.
related to each other. That's a real difference, really.
Do you know what
If
I'm really
you're your
interested in?
king,
Because
you're going to be.
I kind of agree with you that democracy doesn't work very well because people are not smart enough they're not smart enough and good enough to get good leaders at the moment, right? But then the concern is, how do you get good leaders? How do you avoid having a dictator, or or a bad dictator? Let's say a dictator doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it kind of is, really.
Yeah, because the Romans actually elected dictators. They actually elected them. They say, this is a national emergency. We need a dictator to tell us what to do because the Carthaginians or whoever were attacking. So in a national emergency, people saw the point of having martial law and fewer rights, and they would enjoy peacetime.
How do you avoid having a bad dictator then?
Well, that is the $1 million question, and I'm saying, well, how would you judge the morality of a person as your potential spouse or your potential employee, your doctor, your lawyer, your banker? You would need to trust them with your money and your health and blah blah. So how would you even begin to give a list of things that you say, well, you must be, usually it would be, well, not a criminal, not insane, blah, blah. And so I would say the minimal requirements would be, you have to be an honest person, and you are moved by facts and logic. So you will concede if you have lost the argument. That would be a start, right? How many people actually concede when they've lost the argument?
Keep the bar incredibly low. Okay, sure.
Yeah, I'm keeping it really low because we're all fallen creatures, right? And you laugh because you probably don't think you know anyone like that.
No, I
actually concede when they've lost the argument.
Yeah, we're all, we're not 100% honest to ourselves. And yes, I don't know, possibly argue a case when I think I'm wrong or something. But I was actually laughing because the bar is incredibly low. And my solution is, first of all, you have to have a religion. So you've got an objective set of moral standards, and then you just pick the person who's the most moral. But for that situation to happen, is you need to have a good selection of moral people. And the way you do that is you become more moral as a society, and you keep pushing that, you keep encouraging each other. So in the Quran, we're told that part of being a good person is to preach goodness and learn goodness from each other. So it's just, I think the real problem, in short, is that we have immoral people, which is resulting in immoral leaders.
Well, yes. So the bar is so low that we sort of laugh at the idea that there will be people who are moved just by facts and an argument, and we probably find it hard to even find people like that we know, because we're such nice people who are moved by arguments, let alone politicians that we've heard of who will admit when they're wrong, and this. But we can just extend the principle further. So I'm just saying, you just have to be honest, and you just have to be logical, and then you went on to say, well, we have to have a set of principles, a set of moral principles that we can all agree, and then you can judge them by, like, okay, say you're Muslim, and it's like, what kind of a Muslim is he? Is he the kind of Muslim who can be found eating pork in a casino, drinking beer, or is he the sort of Muslim who prays 5 times a day and avoids gambling and pork? And then from amongst Muslims, you can judge the standing of a particular Muslim in the eyes of God, for example. Right? So if you have a set of rules, then you can judge a member of that group who agreed to follow that set of rules by their obedience to those rules. So that is how, like, well, I'm the leader because I'm the most pious and I obey all the rules, and and this person, he's a criminal and he does all the things that are go against the rules, and that is how you judge a standing of a person.
Okay, what are you suggesting right now? Are you suggesting we elect a good person? Because then you're saying you don't want a dictatorship. Or do we magically just have a good person? See, the Islamic Khalifa system or Caliphate system is really different system to a normal governing body, because we're essentially saying God selected the Caliphate, right? So that's a different thing. Yeah, and God will send some signs or something. There'll be some weird stuff. Like even amongst the Ahmadi Muslims, we're the only people who've got Khalifas. We have an electoral body, right? We have elections. It's a bit like the Pope systems, like secret elections by
Papal conclave.
people. Yeah, pre-selected people from around the world. As soon as one Khalifa dies, all this electoral body comes together. They know who they are already, right? And they have to immediately come and leave whatever they're doing. And there would be an election, and they would choose a Khalifa within 3 days or something.
But it's usually he's usually related to the Khalifa who's retired or deceased, isn't it?
Usually, but that's not really a thing. It's just sometimes it happens. Like, for example, Jesus had a Khalifa, James. People don't talk about him much because you don't have real Christianity, but he was put in charge of the Christian, or not even, there's no such thing as Christians, but his followers. Do you know James's brother? He was like basically took over leadership. So do you know Jesus's brother called James?
Yes, yes.
And he was essentially the Khalifa at that time. So they're related. It often happens they're related. But like the first Khalifa, after who we call the Prophet Society, the first Khalifa amongst the Ahmadi Muslims, let's just say, he was not related. So, but the other four were in some ways, right? But that's not a rule.
But if we were wise, we would say we want the wisest person to lead us, right? That's what we would say if we were wise. Yeah. But if we were stupid,
agreed,
we would say, well, they're the most powerful and the wealthiest person. You know,
what's the mechanism? What's the mechanism for choosing this good leader if it's not a democratic system? And we can have different versions of democracy. I think the original idea of democracy was just men, landowners, educated or something. Was that the Greek idea? Can't remember.
Aristocracy.
Okay. Yeah. Aristocracy. Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, wow. I mean, well, people would just, confuse the idea. Well, if you're rich, then you're powerful, and you're therefore righteous, and a member of the aristocracy, and a member of the elite. It all gets conflated, and of course, bad people slip in, and they're corrupt and evil and do bad things. But okay, so let's imagine we were all, wise people in a group, and we say we would want the wisest leader. And then
I agree.
Then we would start arguing about, who is wise, right?
So I'm not sure if we're disagreeing yet. I'm asking, what is the mechanism for finding the leader? You're saying you don't want democracy. Democracy means people picking a leader. So how do we get the leader if you don't pick a leader? That's what I'm confused about.
Well, I think people who are interested in politics should just be allowed to join the only party in the land. So at least you're not going to get confused. You're not going to join the wrong party and lose the election and feel angry and bitter and whatever. There's just one party for you to join, and obviously you hope that the organization is acting in the national interest and wanting the best for the country, and choosing the best people.
Okay. So is that how the Chinese system works?
It's supposed to work in that way. Democratic centralism or Marxist-Leninism is basically just one party. People join, they discuss things, and once the matter's agreed, they have to support it.
So they have a limited democracy where only party members can vote for the leader of China. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so. But I'll have to check. But I mean, look, an absolute monarch would be fine. He would be fine if he were wise and good, etc., etc. It's just that we know that all men are mortal, and he's going to die. What's his son going to be like, right? And what's his son's son going to be like? And then if they're so corrupt, then you might have to overthrow them.
So I don't think that can work, because just like okay, consider a country like a company, right? It's very hard for family businesses continue, because family businesses are like a sort of monarchy, right? You have often a very powerful, charismatic person who founds the company, but the son gets all the wealth and becomes pretty weak because of it. So it's really hard for a follow-up leader for that company. It's really hard, essentially, for family businesses to continue. Do you get what I'm saying? So in the same way, it's really hard to get a king who has a son who's not spoiled and can manage the country as well as the king, if the king was great. Does that make any sense?
Well, that's it. So we know that monarchy is the opposite of a meritocracy, right? It's the opposite of a meritocracy. But it's interesting that you should be talking about companies, because companies have AGMs and they approve directors or CEOs, and they re-elect them, appoint
but
them.
No, not family businesses. Say you don't go on a stock exchange, you don't have to have approved boards and stuff like that.
But even within families, you have these AGMs, and they have to elect directors or not elect them, and then there would be family feuds, like who is director, why wasn't he reappointed, blah 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 blah.
I mean, I know I worked for a private school that was run by a single man, and then the son had to take over, and the son didn't really think he was capable. Actually, I know 2 schools run by private schools, and both times the sons who were supposed to take over didn't think they were up to it, and kind of just carry on and just, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. So ultimately, it's about the rules, and you can judge the suitability of a person, by how much they follow the rules. And I've been trying to explain to people, like, it's got to be patriarchy, because what happens if lots of people are just really good at lying, right? They can tell different people what they want to hear, and sound really convincing about it. And obviously, our politicians who've done PPE at Oxbridge, the past masters at telling lies people want to hear. So what are you to do with that? So you have to find another way, and because we are currently a matriarchy, which means that most people are not married parents, you won't be able to exercise this rule of thumb. Because in the olden days, it would be, well, you can't be president or prime minister of our wonderful country unless you are at least 50, and you have to have a wife, and you have to have adult children who haven't disgraced you, and maybe we might think you're all right. But if you're some bachelor or some gay bachelor, you won't have a chance.
You've got to break
or if your wife has divorced you, or your children are in prison, you're not going to get the job, right?
Okay,
that's how it used to work.
Yeah. Because if you can't raise children, how can you can't lead children into being positive members of society? How can you do that for a whole country? I get that. The gay thing, I can understand it, because I think being gay is a mental health problem. And so what was your reason for...
Yeah, Vincent hates that question, because one of his utopian scenarios is that he will, having made females extinct after he has invented the artificial womb, then all men would be gay, but these men would
I'm not even going to go into
I know, but I asked him how he would be able to choose the best leader in such a society. How would he choose? He wouldn't be able to. He wouldn't be able to choose it, right?
But let's get into...
There's no rule of thumb.
What's the most important things here? So we're talking about how do we select the right leader? And I think I agree with you. We're probably going to be talking about this to some extent in my stream on Sunday when we talk about should women vote, because I think we both agree that there should be limited democracy because we have to have a method of choosing, right? And a limited democracy, you say, should be in a one-party system because, tell me if I'm right or wrong, the good thing about a one-party system where the members vote for the leader is they're already interested in politics. They're all they're like really clued up. Yeah, not like the average person who doesn't care about the history of what's gone wrong before. They care about everything that matters, like the economy, whatever. So you've got the most clued up people voting for the leader. Is that what you like? And I think that's pretty good idea. Do we agree on that?
Yes, yes, of course, because and obviously that they're supposed to care about their country. So in China, it's basically 20 years. You join when you're have some success, you pass some entrance exam, there's a party school, and they put you through your paces. Like, well, it takes about 20 years, you're assessed, you become, I don't know, village councillor, town councillor, city councillor, administrator of a province, etc.
That's how it works in my faith, the Ahmadiyya Muslims. So we're just not born into, but we're pretty much automatically part of what we might call auxiliary organizations like the youth, the young men, the older men, the women of their own organizations, and then we've got national leaders. So the Khalifa that you talked about, we have a Khalifa, which is an international leader, but we've got national leaders. And those national leaders are chosen by people who are respected within the system, who have probably taken on all sorts of leadership roles. So yeah, I would say it's pretty similar to what you're describing is what we have as Ahmadi Muslims. And also, interestingly, women don't vote for the national leader. They vote for leaders amongst themselves, amongst their own women's organization. Like the men don't really know the women that very, very well. So yeah, that'll probably feed into our conversation on Sunday. But yeah, I agree with you. And that's kind of what we practice as Muslims, at least.
Yeah, I mean, basically under my system, people would be divided into groups, and these groups would have representatives, and these representatives would make representations to the government, as single women, married mothers, trade unionists, whatever, to comment on government policy, right? Drivers about transport, train passengers about, just people who use the services of the government would have a body representing them, and they would elect their own representatives to represent their interests. I think that's the most effective way.
Do you think that this system that you're proposing of, let's say, one-party system where you have to be part of the party and you have to be no, it's not really. No, lying is not permitted in Islam. So yeah, do you think this mechanism for working your way up the party, maybe, I'm not sure, like in Ahmadi Muslims, you don't really have to work your way up the party or the organization. You just probably have to have a good standing. People have to know you well, and usually that involves taking on leadership roles, but it's not like, oh, you're this far up, therefore you're going to have the role. But do you think this mechanism would help stop having evil leaders who, do bad things to their own people, have endless wars around the world?
Yes, I mean, ultimately we have to trust the system. So and the government has to earn our trust, because if somebody's always lying to you, you're going to check up on everything they do if you can't get rid of them, right? But ideally, you would want to trust your leader and not feel you have to check up on everything he does, because you have your own life to lead as well. So then you think, well, I'm just going to choose an honest and reasonable person who obeys the rules, who has a reputation of obeying the rules, who is approved of by his people, who his associates, who are also honest and reasonable people who obey the rules. And there would be a rule of thumb. Basically, it's like, well, if you're a man, you should be able to find yourself a wife, and your children should be all right, or not a disgrace, or not in jail, and then you might get your career advanced, right? That was the system of shame and
Do you? So I'm just
advancement.
I'm trying to reflect on. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying, that if you choose, you've got a moral system and you choose people according to that moral system, you're more likely to choose good leaders. Cool. I'm just thinking, yeah, and that'll probably mean you won't get psychopathic leaders that we're suffering from right now, like nasty liars and all this kind of stuff. Just thinking, what other things are important? Like, I'm just comparing it to the Ahmadiyya Muslim system, which is actually, you don't have it's not a job. You volunteer. So, okay, here's a question. What happens if we made it so politicians don't get paid much? It's like it's a service. It's not a, you were saying it like as if it was a career. Do you think that causes problems? What happens if you just get a basic salary or something?
Well, then you're kind of getting yourself into the situation of you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, and monkeys who are looking to get bribes. You don't pay them enough. What do you
But
expect them to do?
how much can you pay? Like, these politicians are all getting bribed, and you're paying them loads. So that's not that. The idea
Well,
doesn't work.
okay, so you're saying that the job should go to wealthy people already. Their wealth might be ill-gotten.
Trump is wealthy already, but he's just greedy, and he's obviously done some dodgy things, and so he's controlled in all sorts of ways. He's endlessly greedy. It doesn't matter how rich he is. So he's a wealthy person, and that doesn't stop him from doing wrong things. And he's easy to blackmail because he's a bad person. So
Do you think? Well, okay. People like Trump because at least if you think he was lying the whole time, he was telling people the lies they wanted to hear, that he would do something about
yeah,
immigration,
I
which
fell
is
for it, but I don't like Trump anymore. I think I said in the stream that I liked him because he stopped a war in Gaza and he stopped a few things, but I think he manipulated me as well. Like, basically, he did a few good things when he got in power, and that was it. And then he just went insane.
okay. I mean, the best we can say to ourselves as Trump supporters is that it would have been worse if Kamala were president. So I think on the whole, things would be worse if Kamala Harris was elected. So even if Trump is going a bit crazy
She was
now,
stupid, but maybe not as evil. I don't know if she was as evil. I don't know.
I think she would have been just more demoralizing for everybody, because she obviously
I think it's not a
was
good.
talking from a script.
I'm not sure if it's a good discussion to say, do we pick which evil and which more
The lesser
stupid person do
evil.
we pick from? Yeah, but I think we should be aiming for. We should be talking about how do we avoid getting all these crappy leaders. Like, how do we just get better leaders? Like, when, do you know what I mean? Not Kamala versus
This is what we're discussing now, about how we should judge someone. So at least as far as Trump is concerned, he has his family under control. He's got lots of sons. They seem to be loyal to him. But he's got a few family members who obviously hate him. But Kamala Harris has no no children. And everybody hates her, and she's known for having stepped away to the top, right? And she's also a terrible politician that no one elected, not even within the Democrats, and so I think it would have been worse because of that to have Kamala in charge of America, because she would be even more neurotic and even more easy to blackmail into starting endless wars, which the Americans are infamous for, because
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I don't really want to go into a discussion of like how do you choose between two crappy leaders. It's like, how do we get to a point where we have to choose between good leaders? And in short, my solution is that we have to raise the moral standard of society. There's a saying of Prophet Muhammad says that you deserve the leaders you get. And I think the extended, but it's hard to find that particular saying, is that your leaders are from among you, so you deserve the leaders you get. Essentially saying that if you are lots of bad people, you're going to get bad leaders. And so it's just a reflection on society. And I think it's pretty accurate reflection of society. Like, I think there's so much corruption in all the companies that I've been in. Like, that's why I hate working for companies or even schools, because it's endless bullying. There's just so many bad things happening. And so if you just think how bad the people around you are, then why would you be surprised when people who lead you are going to be bad? Now, you might not have people who are capable of committing genocide who are in your company, that's because, or your school, whatever organization you're in, that's because they don't have the power to do so. So you just take the same evil people who are surrounding you, right? And you give them more power, and they will do anything for money, right? They will commit genocides and all this kind of stuff. So we just have to raise the standard. And the beginning of raising the standard is to have a standard called a religion. What do you think about?
I actually completely agree. But failing that, when all we're trying to do is agreeing on replacing the current system because it's so messed up, we have to just say you have to be honest and you have to be capable of being persuaded by argument. And we both laughed because we actually don't really know that many people in our own lives who will actually say concede when they've lost the argument. A lot of people will just ignore what you just said, even though you have won the argument and they can't think of a better argument. But they'll still kind of say to you, well, you and whose army are going to make me do this thing, right? So it's like, but I still hate you. I still hate those people. I still want to blame them, even if they're not to blame. Why can't I just kick them out? I've never liked them. Can't stand the sight of them, and so on and so forth. So, the minimum requirements I would have thought are, truth and logic. And sadly, you actually have to bribe people to support what you say, even though they should support it of their own volition. I mean, don't you find that they can't agree with you, even if you've got all the arguments and all the facts?
I think there's different levels of dishonesty, I guess. So like there are some people I know who would tell the truth mostly, and just, they're a bit stubborn on things they don't want to lose a debate on. But I do know, I don't know, there is a spectrum, I guess. But it's a good test.
So I guess a lot of people know where I'm coming from. So I can't even initiate a discussion about what people think is the nature and purpose of religion, any religion, not just Islam or whatever. It's like, why does every society that we can think of have a religion? I mean, nominally, the West is post-Christian or post-liberal, but they sort of, use these words to identify themselves. And then there's Hinduism and Buddhism and whatever. So and what do these belief systems have in common? They support marriage, right? So it's like, well, even if we get things terribly wrong, at least there'll be more to be cannon fodder, or whatever, to die in the next lot of stupid wars. Because if there weren't any more, our civilization would become extinct. And I think most ancient civilizations
What's that thing?
are.
If there weren't any wars, though, our civilization would become extinct. Is that what you said?
No, if we didn't produce the next generation, say if we were all gay,
Oh, okay. I misheard something. Okay, fine.
yeah. But then people can think, yeah, but then people will just have sex and they'll produce children, and it's like, well, it's not enough, because if you don't produce enough of the next generation to enter the labor force, then you'll have problems of uncontrolled mass immigration, which is what white people are always whinging about. And then you say, but you didn't have enough babies, and the people most whinging about these things are bachelors,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, well, you're part of the problem then.
Yeah. It makes me. There's some funny videos going around, or there are probably lots of them, about British people saying, "Oh, they're taking over our values," and then they're like, "They're so retarded." The people who say that, I don't want to insult them too much, but it's like they can't say anything sensible. They're just unemployed. Just
Yeah, and on welfare, and
So they're not having the babies, and they're worried about immigration, people, replacing them, but they're just not even replacing themselves. They're talking
because
about
the government is
values,
breeding
no
us.
values. Yeah.
Yeah, because all governments, they're breeding their citizens, right? I mean, this is what you would do if you were government and you wanted to, continue, there being a country for you to govern in, right? You would have to, say, well, you've got to have children, you've got to parent them properly, and we'll help you educate them and train them, so people want to hire them.
You've got to
So
be
we'll have
wanting to be educated.
a
You can't complain if immigrants take your jobs because you're uneducated as well. So these are all lowerings of the standards of people who don't have religions. Because
well, yeah. So this is a terrible thing about it. So I notice that the mainstream parties do not support marriage, but then the anti-immigration political parties, they don't support marriage either. They're just happy blaming Jews and hating Muslims.
Okay, let's talk about a different angle that I'm interested in, if you don't mind. Have you heard of Your Party, Corbyn's Your Party?
Yes.
It's not a party yet, but getting
yes,
close
I have
to it.
heard that he's starting a new party, but that's just their moronic stupidity. Nobody's going to vote for them. It'll just be a social club.
No, I think it'll be the next big party. Nobody wants to vote for. Okay, they're going to be really popular. First of all, I'm sure.
Corbyn's party, really? Is that what you think?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I don't know if you really popular.
Why would anybody vote for
you get killed.
Why
have you heard of the murders of AfD candidates in Germany?
So say that again.
AfD candidates who are fighting local elections have been mysteriously dying. Apparently 7 of them have died. Have you heard of that? It's even the BBC has reported it.
Sorry, are you saying people who are joining Corbett's party are mysteriously dying?
No, I am saying that you've heard of the AfD, haven't you?
German racist party, yeah.
Yeah. Well, 6 of them have died.
Okay.
So, had you heard of that before I mentioned it?
No. I mean, it sounds. And when did they die? And maybe they're all lunatics. I don't know. What was the circumstances?
Okay, apparently 7 of them have died. Right, days before election.
Oh,
so it's reported in Newsweek and Yahoo. So it's not just some, conspiracy theory. Independent, The Times. BBC Germany's far-right AfD suffers series of candidate deaths. 7 of them
Are
have
they?
died.
Wow.
So,
That's it.
so even if Corbyn became successful, you know what they're going to do to him. Not that I think he's going to.
Yeah, I see. That's another. Okay, that's an important discussion, right? Because we know that there are powers who control, let's say, everything, right? And they don't want things to change, and they'll do their best to stop it. Does that mean we give up? What does that mean?
Well, of course we shouldn't give up, because the whole.
Because what? Oh, I think your mic's gone, or I can't hear you. But while your mic's gone or whatever it is, first of all, or maybe it's my connection. Who knows what's wrong? I can hear some weird noise.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you now. Great.
Okay.
Yep, you're back. So, do we give up? My solution is actually what I call a quiet revolution. How are Muslims taking over everything? Right? They're doing it because they have communities, they have standards, they are becoming the backbone of society. You can't really remove the backbone of society. So if you've got this Illuminati type people who are trying to control everything, you can't really kill off the whole society, otherwise you won't have any society to control, right? So if Muslims become the whole of society, the backbone of society, and they end up keep choosing the leaders they want, and somehow this Illuminati group somehow just keep killing them off, you just won't have. There's a limit to how much an Illuminati type group can control society if society is actually good. Really, where they thrive, okay, is when there's loads of corruption and you've got no standards in society. So really, coming back to my main idea, all the troubles we're having with bad politicians is just a symptom of bad society. And when you fix that, you can't stop having good leaders. Like we're already seeing that.
Yes, I think you make an excellent point. If the leaders are corrupt, what about the people who complain about their leaders?
No.
Are they even stupider and more dishonest and corrupt?
Yeah, they are.
I mean, literally, they can't stand the truth.
If
They'll
we
just
stand
ignore
back,
it.
if we're aliens coming down to the planet and you go, oh, all these terrible leaders, and then the aliens are told we've got a democratic system, and then we chose the terrible leaders, they'll be like, oh, well, you must be stupid or evil yourself. That's it. Simple conclusion. And it's true. And we know that, like in the UK, people can't even get together as a neighborhood, really. Ahmadi Muslims, by the way, are the ones who are getting neighborhoods together. We throw parties and everything. We organize parties for the whole neighborhood. We just get everybody together all the time. So basically, in short, Muslims are the solution. We have mosques, we get together, we have belief systems. That Muslims are already taking over one, gaining more and more positions in parliament. It's all happening, and it's the quiet revolution that is the solution, I would say. And Corbyn's party will probably be dependent on Muslims. I think there's one of the key leaders already within Corbyn's party is a Muslim. Who's that lady? I can't remember. Sultana, something. I can't remember.
I haven't really been following it.
Yeah, but anyway, so you think they'll be decapitated in some ways, right? They'll kill off the leaders at some point. But I'm saying if you have the right attitude over a long period of time, you won't be beaten. I think the problem is we're trying to get short-term solutions to long-term problems. This problem didn't just happen overnight, that we have a terrible society, immoral society. It's like 100 years, right? So it might take 10, 20, 30 years to fix. Why not? But if you want the solution to be solved tomorrow, then you shouldn't even be part of the solution. Like, you don't understand how world works. Like if I want to make an app, it's not going to be made tomorrow. I have to invest a lot of time and effort, be consistent every day. In the same way, if you want a better society, you have to work at it every day. You have to say, okay, we're going to organize ourselves and all this kind of stuff. We're going to be good people ourselves. And it's going to take
tell your
decades.
children not to lie.
Sorry?
And tell your children not to lie and not let anyone lie.
Well,
not let
not
liars
just
get
not
away with
lie.
it.
We're going to raise good children. That's part of the revolution, right? And you got to have children as well, right? So white people, if you want a revolution, you got to have children, and then you got to raise them up well. I do like answering some of the questions. Elliot Blatt is saying, why did you lie about Britons committing more rape than Muslims? Like, why would Muslims want to rape people if they're having more sex than the white people who are not having sex? It doesn't make any sense, right? And I think last time, if it wasn't last time, I usually give a link or information so you can find out for yourself. Like these are like government statistics that say white people or non-religious people are the ones who are raping more people. And it's really obvious. Why? So anyway, I can't take that question too seriously. Is it okay if we answer some of the questions, or do you want
Yes,
to...
please do. Yes, I think Elliot would be just disappointed if you didn't.
So in some ways this is interesting. Why do Muslim societies continue to fail? So that's a really broad thing to say, and there's some interesting answers. So I'm in Jordan, a Muslim society, and is it failing? It could be said to be failing. I don't know. I try to see your perspective. Okay, you can see lots of countries that are in a bad state, like Somalia and maybe Yemen or something, where they've got wars. And so why are they failing? Because they're not being good Muslims, possibly. But listen, on the other side, I'm in Jordan, for example, and I like to distinguish between failed states versus failed societies. And you're talking about societies. I just went to the park last night where we were out past 10 o'clock. And actually, we left around, past 10 o'clock. And we were like, it was so safe. Kids were running around. We went into a slightly dark place where it wasn't completely lit, under a tree. In England, I wouldn't imagine being in a park at that time. Everybody feels relaxed and safe, and people are friendly to each other. That is a successful society. Wow, I barely even close my door right when we go out. Right, I just close the door just in case, my front door. But it's like, should we be bothered? You know what I mean? It's not like a concern. Half the time, I don't even close my front door. Right, anybody could just walk in and steal everything, but nobody does. Right, so. So I think that's not a smart, I don't want to say not smart. So I can understand if you're watching TV or something, you might think all Muslim countries have failed. And then you're ignoring Dubai, you're ignoring Saudi Arabia, you're ignoring whatever, all the successful Muslim countries, I guess, in economic terms. So I think maybe I would love to have an in-depth conversation about that, Elliot, if you're interested. And we could talk about that. I think there's some truth in what you're saying. I would say Pakistan is in many ways a failed country. I'd like to say, though, that over here, land is so cheap. I'm thinking of buying a land and making basically a mansion. I could make a mansion for £50,000, right?
Wow.
My neighbors are like I've got a neighbor who's a lorry driver, and his house is huge. He's a lorry driver, and he's saved up for a huge house. I'm renting for £100 a month, right? Roughly. And I'm renting from a poor electrician who's got a mansion, I'm just renting a room or an apartment within his mansion. He's got like 6 kids, right? So how is that a failed society when things are incredibly cheap and you can live well? In England, you can't even imagine that. Like rents are ridiculous, like £2,000 for a crappy 2-3 bedroom house or something, really crappy quality. Do you know what I mean? And so there's different levels, like, and the food is terrible in England. It's usually frozen from last year. When you eat it, you go to Sainsbury's, the food tastes of nothing. Over here, the standards are so high, it's incredible in terms of food. So, like, if I just go into some, like when we buy a watermelon, my friends were saying like they pick. Oh, I can tell you what's a funny story. I bought a watermelon the other day, right? And the shopkeeper put the watermelon back and told me I picked the wrong watermelon and chose a watermelon better for me, right? And then my guest who came the other day to my house said, "Oh, that even is not a high enough standard. They're supposed to pick the watermelon for you, then take a piece of it and give it for you to taste. And then when you've accepted it, then you buy it," right? Their standards are way much higher than we've got. So I think that's a society that's functioning quite well, right? Rents would be a lot cheaper if all asylums were to be kicked out. I think you're missing the problem that British society depends on asylum seekers, whatever, all these people. And of course, the other argument is, why are asylum seekers leaving their countries to come to our crappy UK? Because we bombed them and we've done terrible things to their leaders and stuff like that. So Pakistan, for example, I think they do have to take, but it's an important story about how society works, the watermelon thing, right? How well it works. But I don't want to say that Muslim countries have no responsibility for the terrible things happening in them. But if you bomb those countries, that's not a good thing. That's not like the West has to take some responsibility. On the other side, like, okay, is the UK a thriving society? Like, so many people are leaving. People like me are leaving. So there's a huge number of people leaving as fast as they can from these Western countries. Prices are too high. The weather's not even that great in a lot of them, especially England. So, yeah. That's a good question. Why don't Syrians go back home now? Okay, so they rushed home, and I thought they had made a mistake to go back home, because now most people are educated in what's happening is that you've got a CIA operative who's taken over, right? He's what do they call it? ISIS, right? And most educated people realize that he's just working for CIA, and so they don't even have a good leader who just walked in and took over. Now, I would still blame Syrians for that, because they rose up against the existing dictator. And I've been to Syria, and I thought even under that dictatorship, Syria was pretty good. It was incredibly cheap. The food was incredibly high standard. So they shouldn't have rose up against them. And they were essentially going against the teachings of Islam by fighting their leaders. They're supposed to, if you're a good person, you eventually get a good leader. When did the UK bomb a Muslim country? Iraq? Is that a joke? I'm not sure. So loads of times, like, the UK, call it the West, they just bombed Iran not too recently. Israel, let's call that part of extension of the evil West. Didn't they just kill the prime minister of Yemen or something? Like, how is that a question? They bomb them. So dude is Hawaiian ethnically raised in the UK, obviously. Oh, I'm the dude who is Hawaiian because of my shirt. Raised in the UK, obviously, and now lives in Jordan in a rented room. Okay. CIO, why not on my side? These I'm just taking the words of my Syrian relatives who said CIA, maybe Mossad, who knows? I don't really know enough, but that's the general consensus among the reasonably educated. Is the UK responsible for actions of the USA? I think they seem to be working together. They seem to be agreeing on like the genocide and doing nothing about it. So they seem to be working together. I better go now. I've got somebody calling. But thank you very much, Claire. Hopefully chat to you on Sunday.
Yes, talk to you on Sunday, and well done for attracting so many hate watchers.
Yeah. Well, I think it's your channel that attracts it, but thank you. All right.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.